My beloved, hear me well. You are not here by accident. You are not listening to this message by coincidence. The Lord, in His divine wisdom, has ordained this very moment for you. Do you think it is by chance that you have found yourself drawn to this word? No, my dear ones. It is the Lord Himself who has guided you, who has placed this before you, because He knows exactly what you need at this precise time in your life. You may have been seeking answers, wondering if God is truly at work in your life. You may have faced disappointments, endured long seasons of waiting, and questioned whether He has heard your prayers. But I tell you today, He has seen every tear, He has heard every cry, and He has not forgotten you. There are no accidents in the kingdom of God. There are no coincidences in His divine plan. Everything He does is intentional, and everything He allows is purposeful. Too often we assume that delays mean denial. We think that if something does not happen according to our timeline, it must mean that God is not moving. But my dear ones, the Lord is never late. His timing is perfect. He is not bound by human schedules, nor is He limited by earthly constraints. When He moves with precision, with purpose, with a plan that far exceeds anything we could ever imagine. Look at the life of Joseph. He had dreams, great visions from God, yet his journey was anything but easy. He was betrayed by his own brothers, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and cast into prison. To the human eye, it seemed as though his life was falling apart, as though the promises of God would never come to pass. But my beloved, what looked like setbacks were actually setups for the fulfillment of God's perfect plan. Joseph's trials were not random. His suffering was not in vain. Every step of his journey was leading him closer to the very promise that God had spoken over his life. And when the time was right, when the season had fully come, God lifted him from the prison and placed him in the palace. One moment he was bound, and the next he was second in command over all of Egypt. My dear ones, do you see? It was not an accident. Every hardship, every delay, every injustice he faced was a necessary step in preparing him for the greater calling ahead. In the same way, your life is not unfolding by accident. The delays you have faced, the closed doors, the struggles, they are not signs of abandonment, they are signs of preparation. The Lord is working behind the scenes, arranging circumstances, aligning divine appointments, and shaping your character so that when the right time comes, you will be ready to walk through the door He is about to open for you. But you must trust Him. You must believe that His ways are higher than your ways, and His thoughts are higher than your thoughts. What you see as delay, He sees as preparation. What you see as an obstacle, He sees as an opportunity. What you see as a closed door, He sees as protection, because He will never lead you into something before you are ready for it. My beloved, do not grow weary in waiting. Do not allow the enemy to whisper lies into your heart, telling you that God has forgotten you. No, He is working even now, even in the silence. Just as a seed must be buried before it can grow, just as the caterpillar must be hidden in the cocoon before it can take flight, so too must you go through seasons of unseen preparation before stepping into the fullness of what God has in store. And when the time comes, when the moment is right, God will open the door that no man can shut. He will make a way where there was no way. You will look back and realize that every step, every detour, every delay was necessary to bring you to exactly where He intended you to be. So be encouraged today. Hold on to your faith. Know that you are not seeing this by accident. God is speaking to you, calling you to trust in His perfect timing, because He is about to open a new door for you, and when He does, you will see that it was worth the wait. My beloved, hear this truth. When one door closes, it is not a sign of rejection, but a sign of God's redirection. Too often, when we face disappointment, when a path we hoped for suddenly ends, we fall into despair. We ask, "Why, Lord? Why did this opportunity slip away? Why did this relationship fail? Why did this door close just when I thought I was walking in the right direction?" But my dear ones, do you not know that God sees what you cannot see? Do you not understand that His ways are beyond your ways? When a door closes, it is because the Lord is leading you to something greater. Sometimes we hold on too tightly to what we think is best for us. We become so attached to our own plans, our own dreams, that we fail to recognize when God is trying to shift us into a higher place. But my beloved, God does not take away without purpose. He does not remove something unless it is for your ultimate good. You may not understand it now, but in time you will see that what you lost was nothing compared to what God was preparing for you. Look at the life of Abraham. God called him out of his homeland, away from everything familiar, into a land he did not yet know. It was not a rejection, but a redirection. God was not taking something from Abraham, He was giving him something greater. But Abraham had to step forward in faith. He had to leave behind the old in order to receive the new. And because he obeyed, because he trusted, he became the father of nations. My dear ones, sometimes the Lord will remove something from your life because it cannot go with you into your next season. There are relationships that served a purpose in one season, but they cannot continue into the next. There are opportunities that seemed perfect in the moment, but God saw what you could not see, and He closed that door for your protection. Do not weep over what God has removed. Rejoice that He is leading you somewhere better. How many times have we seen in Scripture that what seemed like loss was actually the doorway to a greater blessing? Joseph was betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, thrown into prison. All of these seemed like closed doors. But my beloved, each one of those closed doors was actually leading him to the palace. If he had not been sold into slavery, he would not have ended up in Egypt. If he had not been thrown into prison, he would not have met the cupbearer who later brought him before Pharaoh. What seemed like rejection was actually the divine hand of God moving him into position for something greater. And so it is with you. If a door has closed in your life, do not despair. Trust that God is not only in control, He is working all things together for your good. When He removes something, it is because He has something far greater in store. But you must have the faith to release what is behind and step forward into what He is calling you to. Too many people spend years mourning a closed door, looking back, wishing things had worked out differently. But my dear ones, God is in your future, not in your past. He is not calling you to stay where you are. He is calling you forward. The longer you hold on to what He has removed, the longer you delay the blessings He has prepared for you. You must trust Him. You must believe that His plans are greater than your plans. And when the next door opens, you must be ready to step through it without fear, without hesitation, knowing that the Lord Himself has gone before you and He is leading you into something far greater than you could ever imagine. My beloved, faith is not about seeing the full picture. It is about trusting the one who holds it. Too often we wait for clarity before we move, for every question to be answered before we take a step. But that is not faith. Faith is believing that even when you do not see the way, God is leading you. Even when you do not understand the path, He has already walked ahead of you. Even when everything around you seems uncertain, His promises remain unshaken. Many of you have been praying for God to open a new door in your life. You have been asking for a breakthrough, for a change, for a fresh start. But when the opportunity comes, fear grips your heart. What if I fail? What if this is not the right path? What if I am making a mistake? And so you hesitate, you wait, you analyze, you seek more confirmation. My dear ones, there is a time to pray and there is a time to move. When the Lord speaks, when He opens the door, you must step forward in faith, even when you cannot see what lies ahead. Look at the people of Israel as they stood before the Red Sea. Behind them, the enemy was approaching. Before them, an impossible obstacle stood in their way. They cried out in fear, wondering if they had been led to destruction. But what did the Lord say? Why do you cry to me? Tell the people to move forward. He did not part the sea first and then tell them to walk. No, He required them to step forward in faith. And as they moved, the waters parted before them. My beloved, God is calling you to move forward even when you do not see the full picture. Do not wait until every fear is gone. Do not wait until every uncertainty is answered. If you wait for perfect conditions, you will never step into your blessing. Faith is not about knowing. It is about trusting. It is about believing that the same God who brought you this far will not fail you now. Abraham was called by God to leave his homeland to go to a place he did not yet know. The Lord did not give him the full map. He did not show him every step in advance. He simply said, "Go," and Abraham obeyed. He did not wait for more details. He did not hesitate in fear. He trusted that the one who called him was faithful to fulfill his promise. And so I ask you today, what is holding you back from stepping into the door that God has opened before you? Is it fear? Is it doubt? Is it the need for control? My dear ones, fear is the enemy of faith. The moment you let fear dictate your decisions, you remove yourself from the miraculous. If Peter had allowed fear to control him, he would have never stepped out of the boat. But because he chose faith, he walked on water. God is not calling you to understand, He is calling you to trust. He is not asking you to figure it all out, He is asking you to take the next step. Just as He led Abraham, just as He parted the sea for Israel, just as He made a way for Joseph in the midst of his trials, He will lead you into your new season, but you must move when He calls. Many times we delay our own blessings because we are waiting for the wrong thing. We think we need more proof, more signs, more certainty, but the truth is the only thing you need is faith. Faith is the key that unlocks the doors God has set before you. Faith is the bridge that carries you from where you are to where He wants to take you. Faith is what pleases God, and when you walk in faith, you will see His power move in ways you never imagined. My beloved, do not let fear hold you back any longer. Do not stand at the threshold of a new beginning and refuse to step through. The door has been opened before you. God has made a way. The next step is yours to take. Move forward in faith and you will see that He has already gone ahead of you. My beloved, do not let fear and doubt rob you of the blessing that God has prepared for you. Too often when the Lord opens a door, we hesitate. We begin to question, is this really from God? What if I step forward and things do not work out? What if I fail? What if I am not ready? But I tell you today, the greatest enemy of your breakthrough is hesitation. When God calls, you must move, for the door will not remain open forever. Many have missed divine opportunities, not because God did not make a way, But because they allowed fear to keep them where they were, they saw the open door but were too afraid to step through it. My dear ones, fear is not from God. It is the tool of the enemy to keep you stagnant, to keep you bound, to keep you from stepping into the fullness of what God has in store for you. If the enemy cannot stop God from opening a door, he will try to stop you from walking through it. He will whisper lies into your mind telling you that you are not qualified, that you are not strong enough, that you are not capable. But my beloved, God does not call the qualified, He qualifies the called. He does not open doors for those who are already perfect. He opens them for those who are willing to trust Him. Look at Moses. When God called him to stand before Pharaoh, he was afraid. He questioned his own ability. He said, Lord, I am not eloquent. I am slow of speech. But what did the Lord say? He did not tell Moses to rely on his own strength. He said, I will be with you. That was all Moses needed. Not skill, not confidence in himself, just the assurance that God was going before him. And because he obeyed, the people of Israel were delivered from bondage. How many of us today are standing before an open door, yet still questioning? How many of us are waiting for a perfect moment, a moment where fear is completely gone before we take a step? My dear ones, if you wait for fear to disappear, you will never move forward. Fear does not leave before you step. It leaves as you step. The moment Peter stepped out of the boat, he walked on water. The moment the priest carrying the Ark of the Covenant stepped into the Jordan River, the waters parted. Miracles do not happen while we wait in fear. They happen when we move in faith. Some of you are on the verge of something new. You have prayed, you have waited, and now the door is open, yet you are hesitating. You are standing at the threshold, looking at what is ahead, but still holding on to what is behind. My beloved, you cannot step into the new while clinging to the old. You cannot enter your promised land while still longing for Egypt. When God calls you forward, you must go without looking back. Think of the Israelites when they stood before the promised land. God had already given them the land. The victory was already theirs. But because of fear, because of doubt, they hesitated. They looked at the giants in the land instead of the greatness of their God, and because of their fear, they wandered in the wilderness for 40 years. Not because God did not provide, not because the door was not open, but because they refused to step forward. My beloved, do not let hesitation delay your blessing. When God opens a door, do not let fear hold you back. Do not let doubt keep you from what He has prepared for you. The enemy will try to fill your heart with uncertainty, but you must stand firm in faith. If God has called you, He will sustain you. If He has opened the door, He will lead you through it. This is your moment. This is your season. The door is open before you. Walk through it with faith, for the Lord Himself has gone before you, and He will never leave you nor forsake you. My beloved, when God opens a door, He does not expect you to walk through it alone. He goes before you, He walks beside you, and He strengthens you along the way. Yet many of us hesitate not because we do not see the open door, but because we feel unworthy, inadequate, or uncertain about what lies ahead. We look at our own weaknesses and question whether we have what it takes. We wonder if we are strong enough, wise enough, or capable enough to step into what God is calling us to. But I tell you today, it is not by your strength, not by your wisdom, and not by your own ability. It is by the power of the Lord. Too often we let our past dictate our future. We remember our failures, our mistakes, and our shortcomings, and we allow them to convince us that we are not worthy of the blessings God is preparing for us. But my dear ones, God does not see you through the lens of your past. He sees you through the lens of His purpose. He does not call the perfect, He calls the willing. He does not choose those who have everything figured out. He chooses those who trust in Him. Think of Gideon. When the angel of the Lord appeared to him and called him a mighty warrior, Gideon did not believe it. He saw himself as weak, as insignificant, as unworthy of being used by God. He said, "Lord, how can I save Israel? My clan is the weakest, and I am the least in my family." But what did the Lord say? "I will be with you." That was all Gideon needed, not strength of his own, not the approval of others, but the assurance that the Lord was with him. And because he trusted in God, he led a small army to victory against an enemy that far outnumbered him. My dear ones, you may feel small, but the power of God within you is greater than anything that stands before you. You may feel unqualified, but the one who calls you will equip you. If He has opened a door, He will give you everything you need to walk through it. You do not need to have all the answers. You only need to trust the one who does. So many people stand at the edge of their breakthrough but refuse to step forward because they believe they are not ready. But when has God ever waited for someone to be fully prepared before He called them? Moses was not ready, David was not ready, Esther was not ready, the disciples were not ready. But when God called, they obeyed, and as they walked in faith, He gave them the strength, the wisdom, and the anointing they needed. Some of you are standing at the threshold of something new. You have been praying for change, for a fresh start, for a new opportunity, and now God has opened the door. But instead of stepping forward, you hesitate. You are waiting to feel ready, waiting for fear to disappear, waiting for a sign that guarantees success. My beloved, if you wait until you feel ready, you will never move. Readiness is not about having everything figured out. It is about trusting that when God calls, He also provides. Look at Peter when he stepped out of the boat. The storm was raging, the winds were strong, and the waters beneath him were deep. Everything around him told him that walking on water was impossible. But when Jesus said, "Come," Peter did not ask for more details. He did not wait for the waves to calm. He stepped out in faith. And as long as he kept his eyes on Jesus, he walked on water. But the moment he focused on the storm, he began to sink. And yet, even in his doubt, Jesus reached out His hand and lifted him up. My dear ones, you may not feel ready, but if your faith is in God, you will not fall. Even when you feel weak, He will uphold you. Even when you face challenges, He will sustain you. Your ability to walk through the door is not based on your own strength, but on the strength of the one who called you. This is your season of transformation. The Lord has opened a new door for you. Do not let fear keep you from stepping into what He has prepared. Do not wait for a perfect moment. There is no perfect moment. The moment is now. The door is open. Walk through it with faith, knowing that the Lord Himself goes before you, and He will never leave you nor forsake you. My beloved, when God opens a door, He does not simply invite you to walk through it. He prepares the way, equips you, and ensures that you have everything you need to succeed. Yet so many hesitate, not because they do not see the door, not because they do not hear His voice, but because they fear the unknown. They stand at the threshold, looking into a future they cannot fully comprehend, and instead of stepping forward, they retreat. But I tell you today, God has not brought you this far to leave you. He is not a God who abandons His children in the middle of their journey. If He has led you to this moment, He will lead you through it. Too many people live their lives waiting for absolute certainty before they move forward. They pray for signs, for confirmations, for every obstacle to be removed before they take a step. But my dear ones, faith is not about having all the answers. Faith is about trusting the one who does. The Israelites did not see the Red Sea part before they moved, They stepped forward, and then God made a way. The priests carrying the Ark of the Covenant did not wait for the Jordan River to stop flowing before they walked. They stepped into the water, and then the river stood still. The miracle happens when you move, not when you wait. Some of you have been asking God for change. You have been praying for a breakthrough, for a new beginning, for an opportunity to step into something greater. And now the door has been opened before you, but instead of walking through it, you are standing still, wondering if it is truly the right path. My beloved, if God has opened the door, it is not for you to question. It is for you to walk through. Look at the story of Elijah and the widow in Zarephath. She was at the point of complete despair, preparing to eat her last meal with her son before death. She saw no future, no provision, no hope, but the Lord had already prepared a way for her before she even knew it. He sent Elijah with a word, "Make me a small cake first, and then your flour and oil will not run dry." Now she could have hesitated. She could have questioned, she could have refused out of fear, but instead she obeyed. And because she acted in faith, the miracle followed. Her flour and oil never ran out, and she and her household were sustained through the famine. My dear ones, some of you are waiting for provision before you step forward, but I tell you today, your provision is in your obedience. Your blessing is waiting on the other side of your faith. God does not reveal everything at once because He wants you to trust Him step by step. If He showed you the full picture, there would be no need for faith, but He gives you just enough to take the next step, and when you do, He reveals more. Think of Abraham. God told him to go to a land that He would show him. Abraham did not have a map, did not have a detailed plan, did not know exactly where he was going, but he obeyed. And because he walked in faith, he became the father of nations. His obedience brought forth blessings that extended far beyond his own life. Your obedience today is not just about you, it is about what God is setting in motion for generations to come. Some of you are delaying your destiny because you are afraid of making the wrong decision. You are standing before an open door, analyzing every possibility, waiting for a guarantee that everything will work out perfectly. But I ask you, when has God ever required His people to have everything figured out before they moved? He does not call you to understand, He calls you to trust. Peter walked on water not because he had special abilities, but because he was willing to take a step. As long as he kept his eyes on Jesus, he defied the natural laws of this world. But the moment he focused on the storm, he began to sink. My dear ones, do not focus on the storm, focus on the one who calls you. The winds may blow, the waves may rise, but if your eyes are on the Lord, you will walk on what was meant to drown you. This is your moment, this is your season, the door is open, and the Lord is calling you forward. Do not delay. Do not let fear rob you of what He has prepared. Step out in faith, for the one who called you is faithful, and He will complete the work He has begun in you.